All right, back in the basement again today to talk about this ultimate gray combo rack from Hansu. It's listed as the same price as their other combo rack. It is the third combo I've owned from Hansu, and it will not be my last. So in this video, I just want to talk about some of the key differences between this and their other offering, and overall, if it's worth your money. So as I mentioned, this is my third combo from Hansu. This is the newest version, but it offers a lot of the same values that the previous versions did, which is dollar for dollar, the best combo rack on the market for the money. And I say that because if you've looked at other combo racks, whether it be TSS, ER, Rogue, Ghost, Eleiko, you name it, you're looking at spending at minimum $3,000 on the low end. Oftentimes, if you're looking at an Eleiko rack or even some of the customized ones from other brands, you're probably looking in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. This one, while it retails at $3,400 like their other currently available racks, is oftentimes on sale, as it is right now, for $1,600, which includes free shipping, and you can stack coupon codes on top of that, including my own, which is Basement, that knocks it down to $1,450 delivered. Really hard value to beat. So typically when we talk about budget-friendly options, the trade-off is always going to be quality, right? You get what you pay for, buy once, cry once. I haven't found that to be the case with the Hansu racks. In fact, they're some of the most beefy combos that I've owned, which is one of the reasons that I like them, because training at home, I want something that's going to be stable and sturdy, which typically isn't in line with a combo because combos are meant to be broken down, moved around, used in a meet competition, be pretty portable and versatile. So I've mentioned multiple times, this is my third combo through Hansu. They've actually had more than that. What I've found with a lot of these ones though, however, is there's not a ton different, which is a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing if you recently bought from them because they've been having these sales since they've come back fully on shipping. I've done the video of the previous rack that a lot of you guys jumped on, and now that there's a new one out, this Ultimate Gray Edition, you might be worrying that, did I kind of pull the trigger too early? Is this one better than what I have? And my answer for the most part is I wouldn't look at this as a complete upgrade as more as it is just an update. So that's what I'll cover here in this video. So the first thing I want to talk about is purely aesthetic, and that is the actual paint job on it. And that was the first thing I noticed when I unboxed this, or uncrated it, if you will, and brought it down to my basement. Now, the first rack I had through Hansu was like this really dull grayish color, which was okay, but I just don't really think it was an appealing color for most people. The next rack I had was a black one, which was okay as well, except that the paint quality wasn't really the best in my opinion. I mentioned this, that it showed up with a couple of cracks and a couple of flaking pieces off, and I think it was just a cheaper paint job than the previous one I had gotten, and this one far exceeds both of those. The paint job on this is really nice. It's like this gun metallic gray. There is some metallic fleck in the paint as well. It might be hard to see on the videos, but it really reminds me of some of the Eleiko gray combo racks that have that little bit of shine and shimmer to it, but the application on this is, like I said, the best that I've seen so far through Hansu. So speaking of aesthetics, one of the things you'll find on this Ultimate Gray combo are more prominent Hansu branding, like here on the face savers, here on the gussets for the uprights, right here by the lever arms. You do have some under the bench, but the other ones had that there too. Lastly, you have some branding here on the front stabilizer plate, kind of similar to what TSS does on their racks, but in this case, this is an update with some functionality from previous versions of the Hansu racks. Previously, you had a smaller foot plate, which was centered right in the middle here. In this case, it extends almost the entire width of the rack, making it even more stable, which it already is due to its weight. So the problem with most combos that many people find is that they're not super stable when setting up for a squat unless they're actually braced against something, which in a home gym is harder to do. In a meet, they'll typically put a wooden block or something down or screw the actual stabilizer plate to the floor. Because this thing is so beefy, because the actual brace plates stick out further than a lot of other combo racks, and because that stabilizer plate is so wide, what you'll find is, even pushing in, it's really hard to move this rack, which is something that I really like about this for home gyms. More stability than most combos. Now, one of the common complaints about this rack is because it's so beefy is the bench is a little bit harder to adjust. Now, it is on wheels and you can wheel it around quite easily, but it is a heavy bench. So if you're planning on picking this thing up, it is not the most fun thing to do. The way that it attaches is not different than any of the other previous versions that I have with these brackets in the front. But one of the things that's been updated is the fact that it now has these hand screws, which are much more ideal than the other two versions that I've had on the other racks. You'll also find similar hand screws both on the way that the face savers attach, as well as moving the uprights in and out. Now, speaking of moving the uprights in and out, it still is a fairly simplistic process. And while these hand screws are much improved over previous versions, in my opinion, if you're in a meet scenario where you might be consistently moving these in and out, hand screws, I don't think, are the easiest or faster method to do so. So I do wish this is something they'd improve. But in order to do this, you would just loosen this up, slide up this bracket, push the upright in, slide it down, and retighten, and you now have an upright that is in. So setting up for a normal bench, like if I were to put my head where the pad is, where I would typically bench in other combos, I think that's gonna put me a little bit too far under where I'd like to be. And while I can still press in this position, I have to be really aware of not pressing back into the rack because I'm gonna clip those lips here on the catches. So ideally, I would be back down here, which gives me a lot more space on the head pad, which I think would be better served down here by my legs. Case in point, if I want to do feet up bench or something like that, which I know on a combo rack is a first world problem, but in the proper bench position for me, I really don't have any room to put my feet. So in order to do that, I would have to go to this off position again, where I feel like I'm too close to the catches. Now, just real quick on the bench pad, because this isn't actually different than the other version that I had. It's a nice pad. It's about 12 inches wide. It is somewhat sticky. It is a very firm pad at about 17.5 inches off the floor. So I called this out in my original video that the pins were too long sticking out on this end. Since the last rack I've had, they've actually fixed this issue, so you only get a little bit of a nub, which is perfect because that way when you're loading plates, even on a thin collar bar, it's gonna be much harder for those to hit or touch. So very much improved here in terms of the pins, and it's still big enough where you can use the actual levers to get a hook on there and move these up or down as needed. So bring your attention up here to the catches. Nothing's really different, but it's important to reiterate why I like these. They are a longer roller, which I like because if I wanted to use something like a safety squat bar in here, I definitely could. It has UHMW on the back as well to protect for when you're racking the bar. The lip itself is angled out. They say it's for easier unrack. I don't find that to be the case. This is a fairly high lip from what I'm concerned. I like to see this shaved off just a little bit and maybe even straight. That way it'd be easier to put some kind of plastic lip on here because as of right now, it's just bare metal, which could chew through the bars a little bit, but this is what you get for both the squat and the bench catches. Speaking of catches, one of the things I actually reverted back to, which is a good thing, is the actual face saver. So this portion right here on my last rack was metal, whereas the first rack I had, this had UHMW covering like this one. So they went back to UHMW on this angled portion, which I think is a good thing. So there you go, that's the ultimate gray combo rack from Hansu. Like I mentioned, more of an update versus an upgrade. So if you recently bought a rack from them, I wouldn't have any buyer's remorse by any means because it's mostly cosmetic updates as far as I'm concerned. Now that being said, either one is a great option, again, given the price point, which is typically on sale for $1,600. If you use a code like mine, which is code BASEMENT, it knocks it down to $1,450, delivered to your door for a 400+ pound machine. I think is a pretty great deal considering everything that you get and comparative to the other combos on the market. Now I mentioned before, this is very similar to the heft of the Rogue combo, but if you've used a Rogue combo in the past, a common complaint is just it's too wide. It's 49 inches wide. It uses 3x3 uprights, so people have a tendency to bang the bars and the plates as they unrack or walk the bar out for squats. This one's actually 47 inches and uses more standard size uprights, so I haven't ever found that to be much of an issue, if at all, to be honest. So if you're interested, it's really hard to beat this at the bargain price it is, but if you have questions I wasn't able to answer in this video, let me know in the comment section below. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.